This could be the crucial weekend as the Mississippi and other rivers go to record heights. The president's policy on gays in the military, criticism from both sides tonight. And the buffalo making a comeback 100 years after it was almost wiped out.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. There was more rain and more high water in new parts of the Midwest today, and tonight the Mississippi and Missouri rivers are joined 20 miles north of where they normally come together. President Clinton is headed back to the flood areas this weekend. That combination of Mississippi and Missouri River water now is headed for St. Louis, and upstream, Quincy still is fighting for its life. Des Moines got more bad news today. We'll begin our coverage with NBC's Kenley Jones in St. Louis.
The Mississippi and Missouri rivers are so swollen that they collide 20 miles farther upstream than normal. The Missouri, or the Misery as it's being called today, began spilling over a major levee that protects St. Charles, Missouri, a town of about 55,000.
You gonna be able to make it out? Yeah.
Military, police, and firefighters assisted in the evacuation of those who had had enough and wanted out. This was Timothy Smith's first flood.
First time. Last time.
Others, like Billy Bider and Mike Allert, prepared for a quick retreat, but planned to stay.
Whenever my hind end gets wet, that's when I'll start saying it's time to go.
Nah, we still can save it.
Yeah. Bolstering the levee began early today, with farmers working the sand instead of the soil. But with the river still rising, it appeared to be a futile effort.
Too much rain. It's nobody's fault.
Because of the rise in crest predictions, officials have called for renewed sandbagging efforts in areas that have already been evacuated. In South St. Louis, more than 200 volunteers responded, filling sandbags for city workers who are trying to contain the river Des Peres.
Getting a little close to home. Time to come down and help.
More help will be needed because the worst is yet to come. The Mississippi will not crest here until Monday at 16 feet above flood stage, maybe more. Kenley Jones, NBC News, St. Louis.
Come on. Come on.
This is Dawn Fratangelo, 150 miles upriver in Taylor, Missouri, where residents play a waiting game. One of the area's last standing levees sits just behind Bob Lundberg's house.
Well, you lose all the buildings, you lose the house. It'd be monetary, $250,000 maybe, something like that.
The levee also protects the bridge to Quincy, Illinois, which Bob and his wife depend on to get to work. For that reason, they're staying across river. The only work Bob's been doing is monitoring the pump house, which drains water from the soggy levee.
I see the guy down at the pump station more than I see my wife. He's a nice guy, but please.
For Mary Ann Lundberg, going to work is no relief.
Sometimes I have a hard time working. I'm thinking about it pretty much all the time now.
This flood has forced Bob and Mary Ann to choose between work and home. If the levee breaks, they'll lose their house, but at least they'll keep their jobs.
They've moved everything out of their house, just as they did during the flood of '73. This time, they may not come back.
I'm tired of it because, like I said, we've been through it once before, and we said, well, we'll go through it once, but twice, that was, that's it.
You get really resilient. I just wish it was over.
But they remain at the mercy of the river, and all they can do is wait. Dawn Fratangelo, NBC News, Taylor, Missouri.
This is Jim Cummins, 212 miles upriver in Des Moines, where kids are playing in contaminated floodwater, and the parents got even more bad news today. Many of them will not have running water for at least another week. Waterworks manager L.D. McMullen said it will take that long to restore pressure in the system for all 250,000 customers.
We would ask everybody, all of the customers and businesses as well as residential users, use water as if it's gold.
For now, they have none. Some travel to places like Scrub Your Duds in nearby Altoona to do their laundry. Downriver from Des Moines, farms resemble lakes. Residents in the small town of Eddyville have moved their bank and post office to higher ground. In Ottumwa, 300 families evacuated from their flood-battered homes a week ago were told they can't move back in for another month. And at one point, a stretch of Interstate 80 was washed out, forcing eastbound traffic to be diverted 100 miles out of the way.
This afternoon, more rain as homeowners who were caught in the flood began the grim process of digging out.
We was wading water up to right here when we left.
George Beveridge and thousands of others lost almost everything.
Look at that. Those are all my grandkids.
Many victims of this disaster are simply overwhelmed. Jim Cummins, NBC News, Des Moines.
This long season of flooding is spread clear across the upper Midwest. Between them, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and South Dakota now have 7 million acres of farmland lost for this season. Huge losses in those states. And look what happened last night in Fargo, North Dakota, on the Red River. 7 inches of rain, and this morning, flooded streets. No toilets, baths, or showers until further notice. And remember the historic town of St. Genevieve, Missouri, on the Mississippi River, that old French settlement from the 1700s? Parts of it still are underwater, but the historic district remains protected by a levee. Residents are prepared to build the levee even higher if necessary. Turns out there are people making money out of these floods. We'll have that story in a moment. And how would you like to be running a railroad across the Midwest these days? Trains and all they carry are running very late, if at all.
Frank said he'd really like to take a relaxing vacation this year. I've got just the place.
If they could see you now out on a fun ship cruise, you're eating fancy food and doing what you choose. I'd like your friends back home to get a good look.
I ask you, does Frank look relaxed or what? Take a 3, 4, or 7-day vacation on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world. Honey, I just booked another week.
Great.
Last week really scared me. My dad's stomach was really bad, but he wouldn't admit it. He has this thing about doctors. I was afraid he had an ulcer. And you know what? The doctor said Mylanta. It was indigestion, the kind that needs really strong medicine.
Mylanta is strong medicine, strongly recommended. It's the antacid doctors recommend most.
My doctor said Mylanta.
Also available in tablets and now gel caps.
Another major problem tonight in the Midwest flood areas. Hundreds of miles of railroad track are closed down. Trains have been canceled or diverted by high water washouts, rock and mudslides. As NBC's Robert Hager tells us now, some companies could lose a flood tide of dollars.
Outside St. Louis, a diverted freight moves slowly south along a ribbon of roadbed above the floodwaters. 1/4 of the nation's freight passes through the flooded area. Coal, grain, and auto parts are getting through, but up to 3 days late. Thousands of Amtrak passengers each day are being affected by cancellations or delays. Amtrak says it will lose millions of dollars, and freight lines say damage will run many millions more. These pictures taken last weekend by the Santa Fe Railroad along tracks in Missouri. Hopper cars loaded with ballast, left intentionally on another bridge, a desperate attempt to weight down the bridge and prevent it from being washed away. These are the main rail lines from Chicago west, but Chicago to Omaha is closed because of high water in Iowa. Chicago to Kansas City and west is closed because of high water in Illinois, a bridge out in Missouri, and high water in Kansas. St. Louis to Kansas City is closed because of high water here. Some passenger trains are getting through by a northerly detour with 6-hour delays, while freight is being diverted as far north as Minneapolis and as far south as Memphis and Little Rock. Amtrak initially tried switching some passengers to buses, but has given up that practice now. Jennifer McKnight arriving in Chicago this afternoon.
When I was on Amtrak about 2 hours, we were on our way. We had to back because it was flooded. And then we sat there for 4 hours. They were trying to figure out how they were going to get us to Chicago.
Some airlines have agreed to sell discount plane tickets to stranded Amtrak passengers. But government officials say even after water recedes, it'll take weeks to repair roadbed, weeks to return the nation's railroads to normal. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
And with floodwaters rising, the losses continue to mount. But there is another side to the story. For some, this rising water means rising profits. NBC's chief financial correspondent is Mike Jensen.
And just received a shipment of 850-gallon tanks for water storage for $279.99 each.
Along the Mississippi and Des Moines rivers, they're selling out of everything that will contain water, pump water, or hold water back. Sandbags are being shipped from dealers all over the country. Business had been dead. This gave them a tremendous shot in the arm. Upwards of 5 million woven plastic bags like these have been shipped by dealers in the Northeast to the flood zone. They sell for 25 to 40 cents a bag. Profits so far for the Northeast dealers is about $500,000. Then there are portable toilets. In 2 days, Polyjohn Enterprises in Whiting, Indiana, shipped 6 truckloads of 26 toilets each, $67,000 worth.
One portable toilet, if you were picked up here, is $429.
In Amesbury, Massachusetts, a company called Munter's Moisture Control is shipping truckloads of dehumidifiers. A month ago, only 350 of the company's 1,000 units were rented out. Then came the flood.
We're in the process of mobilizing every piece of equipment we have and shipping it out to the flood zone as quickly as possible.
If you want to see real money being made, look at this. Speculators who guessed that soybean prices would go shooting up on the Chicago Board of Trade made a killing.
It was clear that we would have damage to the crops and therefore prices would go up. And that's when we started buying.
In 2 weeks, Alvaro Ensede and 14 of his clients made more than $3 million. Back in Des Moines, the Waterpick folks sent their shower truck to help residents clean up and to get free advertising. It's America the way it is, neighbor helping neighbor, and businessmen and women making a buck wherever they can.
All are available now at CT Farm and Family Center, where they have special extended hours this week.
Mike Jensen, NBC News, New York.
On Wall Street today, stocks closed sharply lower as some key blue chips reported lower earnings, and trading today was heavy.
Oh, guys, my commercial. Listen. Wheat Thins from Nabisco. So much wheat, so smart to eat. Intelligent crackers. Wheat Thins pack a ton of hearty taste into a little snack that's smart to eat. See, that's smart. With a big crunch baked through it. Sounds very snackable. You are deliciously correct, oh maternal one. Wheat Thins, the smart little snack that's big on taste. You couldn't have said it better yourself. Zap!
Everyone's looking for a good value these days. I'm no different. I buy bargain brands for some things, but when it's medicine I put in my body, especially a pain reliever, then I choose Advil. My doctor recommended it by name, and I've had it work on enough headaches to know it really does the job. The price? Advil can be only pennies per tablet, and if that's all it costs to help get rid of my pain, I call that real value. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
You want energy all morning? A good breakfast makes a difference.
Don't miss Grape Nuts Discover the Difference Week. Here's what you'll discover.
Now I don't run out of energy before I run out of morning.
Discover how breakfast with Grape Nuts helps keep you going.
This box, full of great mornings.
Discover the difference breakfast with Grape Nuts can make. It's the fat-free, natural energy source. And discover a taste that's
not fancy, but really good.
Grape Nuts Discover the Difference Week, coming July 25th.
The White House today was quick to rush to the defense of its choice for Surgeon General, Dr. Joycelyn Elders, saying the president remains firmly committed to her nomination and that questions about her finances will prove to be no problem. The FBI is looking into a 1992 lawsuit which charged that Elders, along with other directors of a Little Rock bank, with mismanagement and negligence. That other great White House controversy, gays in the military. President Clinton today delayed decision on a Pentagon compromise proposal. No decision until Monday at the earliest. The president, however, is facing opposition from all sides tonight. More on this story from NBC White House correspondent Andrea Mitchell.
Bill Clinton is discovering that it's not easy to run away from his campaign promise to lift the ban on gays in the military. Called by the White House, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Don't Pursue, the Pentagon's latest plan would end most military investigations aimed at ferreting out gays. For the first time, soldiers could march in gay pride parades, go to gay bars, room with people of the same sex off base without being investigated, as long as they didn't have sex or talk openly about being gay. Clinton had expected that 2 gay congressmen could help sell the compromise to the homosexual community. But today they said don't ask, don't tell is not good enough.
The basic principle that if you do or say anything that indicates that you are gay or lesbian, anywhere, anytime, any place, that was still in there as a principle. and that was a problem.
But the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee might find the plan too permissive.
The presence in military units by persons who, by their acts or by their statements, demonstrate a propensity to engage in homosexual acts would cause an unacceptable risk to the high standards of morale, good order, and discipline.
Clinton is in a terrible bind. Opponents to lifting the ban say they have the votes to block Clinton's new policy. And the president's friends in the gay community feel betrayed by his willingness to compromise.
I think any acceptance of don't ask, don't tell is a total capitulation to bigotry.
White House officials concede that the president is not living up to his campaign promise, but they say the compromise is preferable to the alternative, having Congress impose even tougher restrictions on gays. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News at the White House.
Another part of this storm of controversy over gays in the military, debate over whether don't ask, don't tell, whether that violates free speech and other constitutional rights. More on this story tonight from NBC's Pete Williams.
The first legal challenges could come from two cases already in the courts. A federal judge in California has blocked the Navy from discharging sonar analyst Keith Meinhold, even though he went on television to say he's gay. Midshipman Joseph Stephan was discharged from the Naval Academy 6 years ago after he told a few friends of his homosexuality. Both cases, now on appeal, could test any new policy that calls for discharging those who say they're gay. And gay rights groups say they have new cases ready to take to court. They'll argue that once the military allows gays to serve at all, it would be unconstitutional to treat them differently, with, for example, stricter standards of sexual conduct.
It is not a real change to say, well, we are no longer penalizing people because of their status as gay people, only because of their conduct, and yet to define conduct as anything that you ever do or anything that you ever say, well, there's no line between that and status.
The possibility of new lawsuits worries those who oppose having gays in the military.
If the military liberalizes its policy, indeed we expect that it will be, then that's going to open them up to all sorts of litigation, which indeed will lead to, I believe, a complete overturning of the ban.
Written briefs in the Stephan and Meinhold cases are due in about a week, so the administration won't have long to formulate its legal defense for the new policy. Pete Williams, NBC News, Washington.
NBC News can confirm tonight that President Clinton will name Admiral William Crowe to be the next ambassador to Great Britain beginning next year. Crowe was chairman of the Joint Chiefs under Presidents Reagan and Bush, but he did endorse Bill Clinton in last year's presidential election. And the curtain's been raised just a bit on Britain's secretive MI5 intelligence agency. The head of that agency, Stella Remington, was photographed today, the first time in MI5's 80-year history that a picture of the top person was made public. She is a 58-year-old woman, codenamed K, not an elderly gentleman, codenamed M, as James Bond fans always thought.
Every night during trout season, Ed Russell ties some of the best flies ever seen on Pinecrest Lake. But sometimes his arthritis pain can make it tough to sleep. That's when his wife Ann gives him Tylenol PM gel caps. Unlike ordinary pain relievers, it has extra strength Tylenol pain reliever, plus a gentle ingredient to help him sleep, which is good news for Ed, but not for the trout population of Pinecrest Lake. Tylenol PM, it puts arthritis pain to rest.
0700. The milk is on your Kellogg's Crispix when...
Eddie's.
Private.
Colonel, sir.
Something on that table interests you?
Just poured the milk on my Crispix, sir.
It's times like these you're thankful Kellogg's Crispix special shape helps it stay crispy and delicious in milk.
Eddie's. Hey, still crispy. Excuse me, Private.
Still crispy, sir.
Kellogg's Crispix, the taste that waits for you.
The fear of bad breath. The threat of plaque. The menace of the gum infection. Gingivitis. Only one leading mouthwash protects you against all three. Only one. Listerine Antiseptic. It's there to protect you.
Tonight's forecast, freezer burn. You need Ziploc brand freezer bags. Only Ziploc has the gripper zipper. Tough, tiny teeth you can feel gripping. Locks freshness in, freezer burn out. I'm freezing my rump roast. Ziploc has the lock on freshness.
Day after day, you make those glasses of thick Metamucil disappear. Why not make them all disappear with FiberCon? Doctor-recommended FiberCon gives you the same fiber regularity in tablets.
Easy to swallow tablets.
Get doctor-recommended FiberCon.
It was the worst arson spree in U.S. history. No one could believe who did it, and neither will you. The Fireman.
An all-new Dateline NBC.
Tuesday.
The United Nations said today it may be forced now to end relief efforts and pull out of Bosnia despite promises of more aid donations. The UN blamed all sides in that conflict for obstructing aid deliveries. Today, Croat forces stopped 10 convoys with hundreds of tons of food from reaching Muslim territory. Food has reached the town of Tuzla, but as NBC's Keith Miller reports now, it is being stolen by people desperate to eat.
These people aren't getting aid, they're stealing it. The town of Tuzla is cut off. Raiding a UN warehouse comes easily to residents angry that aid goes only to refugees. When we ask for food, said one resident, we're told we have houses and have no right to get aid. The economy in Bosnia has collapsed. In Vitez, there are few shops still open and no bars or restaurants. There is food, but at a price. A pound of tomatoes costs 3 months' salary. Apples, $7 a bunch.
No one is starving now, today. I think it's a psychological starvation. I think there's a terrible, terrible fear and a panic which is starting to surge within people.
In Geneva today, the United Nations pledged $120 million in aid, but that will last just another 3 months.
We have to save lives to begin with, and we have been, this is what the whole UN has asked us to do, the whole international community.
But getting aid to those who need it most is proving almost impossible. The Red Cross is pulling out of some frontline towns, leaving more than 500,000 refugees to fend for themselves. The battle in Bosnia has expanded. The threat now comes not just from people who have guns. Keith Miller, NBC News, London.
And other hotspots where the United Nations is involved, Somalia, where Italy said it will not obey UN demands to replace its top general. Italy also supports talks with the Somali gunmen that the United Nations forces have been fighting. And Iraq, where that standoff continues over UN surveillance of 2 missile test sites near Baghdad. Today, a high UN official met for several hours with Iraq's deputy prime minister. The two sides agreed to keep talking this weekend. A high Egyptian official has suggested that Iranians and Iraqis may have been involved in the bombing of that World Trade Center in New York earlier this year. The official said this information came from the confession of a bombing suspect arrested in Egypt. And in Vietnam today, the search for MIAs from both sides of the war. In Hanoi, American officials turned over to the Vietnamese a first installment of captured documents which may help Vietnam find some of its 300,000 missing. The U.S. hopes that will lead to more Vietnamese help in locating American MIAs and says relations will not improve unless there is more progress on these issues.
Prowler at 15 Pine.
After I got this job and the stress, I had trouble getting to sleep. So I take Unisom to get to sleep fast. It's safe, and nothing I've tried works better.
In medical tests, people fell asleep 23 minutes faster with Unisom than without, and slept better all night.
I wake up feeling refreshed, not groggy. Let's go. Unisom works faster, so I can be at my best.
I'll never go back to denture pastes or powders again.
Here's why. C-Bond denture adhesive. No other adhesive works like C-Bond, and it holds dentures so tight, so long. C-Bond combines 2 powerful adhesives into a soft micro-thin seal that bonds your dentures to your gums, can hold them comfortably all day long.
I'll never go back to pastes or powders.
There's no messy cleanup. C-Bond is so easy to remove. Nothing holds dentures like C-Bond.
You'll never go back to pastes or powders again.
Seems like my body's playing by a whole new set of rules. So I try to make the most of what I eat. I switched to Total. A day's worth of 12 vitamins and minerals. And 100 calories. No cereal beats that.
When the rules change, count on Total's nutrition.
Quality results depend on making the right investments. And at Ford Motor Company, that begins with our employees. We invest over $20 million each month in the continuing education and training of our employees, and they, in turn, teach us new things every day. The bottom line, increased motivation and an obsession with quality.
At Ford, an investment in education is an investment in quality.
Ford Motor Company, quality is job one. It's working.
When you ask for Tums, don't fall for this.
They're all the same.
Because they're not. Mylanta uses aluminum and magnesium. Tums helps conquer heartburn and gives you calcium.
Something my body needs anyway. I like that.
Saturday, the mighty Mississippi continues to cut a path of death and destruction. We'll bring you the latest on the devastating floods. Plus, much ado about Kenneth Branagh, Saturday on Today.
There was a time when the prairies of America were black with buffalo, but then one of the greatest slaughters ever, and the buffalo was almost wiped out. Now, however, 100 years later, the great buffalo comeback, sort of, from the prairie to the plate. NBC's Roger O'Neill.
He is a most curious wild animal, Tatanka, which is one reason why between 1850 and 1900 it was so easy for man to kill nearly 40 million American plains bison. Today the animal is no longer in danger, rescued in part by ranchers who saw the nutritional value in buffalo meat. The Fort restaurant near Denver serves more buffalo meat than anywhere else.
It not only tastes good, but it also has a good health story to go with it. It's very low in cholesterol, less than half that of beef.
It also has less fat and calories than beef, and poultry and pork and some fish. But it's expensive. A tenderloin of buffalo costs $29.95 a pound. A beef tenderloin, $9.49 a pound. That's because buffalo is in short supply. Only 130,000 animals across the country. That's how many cattle are slaughtered every day. Buffalo are raised in all 50 states, but the herds are small, and for many, it's just a hobby. But that's changing as more ranchers find out a 2-year-old bison can fetch twice as much as a 2-year-old cow, with a lot less work since buffalo like to be left alone. Will McFarland, whose herd numbers 1,700, has also discovered the animal is very easy on the fragile prairie it roams.
They never stay in one place very long, so a massive herd can graze over a large area and then it moves on, thus allowing the grass to rejuvenate itself, but also does not beat the land up into fine dust that then blows away in a windstorm.
McFarland's Denver Buffalo Company is one of the nation's only marketers of buffalo meat. This is still a business in its infancy. But Tatanka is beginning to move east. It's an occasional dinner special at several upscale restaurants in Washington and New York. With people liking it, the novelty of a beastly dinner of buffalo could become the meat of the 90s, if it gets cheaper. Roger O'Neill, NBC News, Denver.
That's Nightly News for this Friday. Sunday on Meet the Press with Tim Russert, Gays in the Military with Senators Bob Kerrey and Dan Coates. And I'll see you again next Monday.
Try Men's Health today. It's about you, your health, your looks, your relationships. Isn't it about time?